Before starting this session, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Kishore Zavle. Kishore Zavle did his BTech in Production Engineering from COEP in 2012. Very young faculty, young in the sense, young and dynamic. He has All India rank of 54 in GATE in 2012. He did his masters from NIT Warangal. In 2014, he was awarded European Union Fellowship to pursue his PhD at Mechanical Department of University of Porto. After completing his PhD, he did his first postdoc from Mondragon University, Spain. His second postdoc was in collaboration with Cambridge University and Bath University, UK. He has published 5 articles in the international journals and 12 in international conferences and presented them in 6 different countries. He is having around 6-7 years of research and teaching experience in the field of manufacturing. He is teaching manufacturing automation, fluid power systems to our MTech and BTech courses at College of Engineering, Pune. Expertise in the field of hydraulics and pneumatics, and working in the field of this automation, manufacturing engineering and automation, having the expertise and also the simulation softwares at different platforms. Really, you will be experiencing his expertise through his presentation as well as through his demonstration related to hydraulics and pneumatics. So with this brief, I would like to request Kishore sir to...
As I was saying, we'll be discussing about hydraulics and pneumatics and robotics in this session. I hope my slides are visible. Can few of you give me a confirmation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So let's begin with the introduction of or the definition of robotics. What is robotics? It is a branch of technology that deals with design, construction, operation, and application of robots. Robots is an interdisciplinary research area at the interface of computer science and engineering. Now, the goal of robotics is what? It is to design intelligent machines that can help and assist humans in their day-to-day life and keep them safe. And what are robots? Robots are nothing but they're a machine that works automatically and can do some tasks that human can do. So essentially, a robot is a machine, especially one programmable by a computer, is capable of carrying out complex series of action automatically. Another important characteristics of robots is they are, so let's go back to the laws, basic laws of robotics. Why these were invented? Because as the robotics field progressed and there was advent of artificial intelligence where the robots could act independently, autonomously, and could take decisions, it led to mass fear, and that reflected in various fictional novels and also various cinemas where you could see that robots are taking over the humanity. Okay? Because of this, there was a growing awareness, or there was a demand amongst the scientific community to have certain laws similar to that of humans have to follow. And this law should be universal, unlike the laws that we have. Human laws are restricted from country to country. Each country has its own judicial laws, but these laws should be uniform across the platform. And that is why Isaac Asimov came up with these 3 basic laws of robotics. What are these 3 basic laws of robotics? First one is, the first law says that a robot may not injure a human being through inaction, allow a human being to come to a harm. Essentially, it means that a robot cannot take a decision to injure a human being. And we are discussing about the laws of robotics. So the second law says that a robot must obey the orders given it by the human being except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Now, the robot has to follow the order. There is no exemption for that. Whatever orders may be given by the human, the robot has to obey. And the exceptions are only when such orders which are given by human would conflict the first one. What is the first law? First law says that you should not harm or injure the human being. Let me share my screen again. As we are discussing, so second law says that a robot must obey the orders given by a human being except where such orders would conflict with first law. So a robot has no option but to follow human orders, and it is exempted or it should not follow orders when it is in conflict with the first law. And the first law says that a robot may not injure a human being through action or inaction, both. So you may say inaction, how this is possible. Let's say if a robot is present in an air flight and in between the flight journey, the robot senses that the door of an airplane is opening up. So a robot may not sit idly. It should make all its effort to keep the door latched so that the human beings will be out of the harm's reach. So this is how the second law works. And the third law says that robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So there are priorities in the lives. The first priority is of that of a human being, and then the robot may save itself. Let's say if you give an order to a robot that, especially one which is autonomous and which can judge by itself, and if you ask him that you go and immerse yourself in water, if it realizes that if immersing in water will result in short circuit or will result in shutting off the robot, it has the right to not follow those kind of instructions. Then, as the field of robotics advanced, it was realized that the robots had reached not to a small circle, but it has an effect throughout the humanity. So there was felt the need to introduce zeroth law, and the zeroth law says that a robot may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to any harm. So these are some laws which are fun laws, I would say, very basic laws to understand, very easy to understand. Uh, I'll not discuss much about the applications of robots because you have been seeing them throughout various sessions. Those are, and this list keeps on increasing for the applications. But I would like to revisit how these motions in robotics are achieved. How does a robot perform various motions? It is a kind of prerequisite to go ahead in this session. So let me play a video for you. Just give me confirmation if you could hear the system spot, the voice that comes along with the video. Thank you for the confirmation. So basically in this video, what has been discussed is various degrees of freedom. That is the motion that the robot can have. Okay? So please pay attention to the video. Okay, so some of you are saying that there is no audio, but irrespective of the audio, I think the video was self-explanatory where it showed various movements of the robots. Okay. So you have motion along its face, its shoulder, its elbow, then along the waist you have three different motions. So the motion that we saw in this particular robot, or I can again play the video and you can see the again the motions. So this motion is essentially achieved by using electric motors. You can see along various positions there is a provision to mount electric motors. So this motion in this particular robot is achieved using electric motors. But I would like to tell you that motions in robotics can not only be achieved using electric motors, but there is another efficient option available as well. What is the second option? So the first option is to use electric motors, okay, and the second option is to use fluid power. And in fluid power also you will have two options. Either you can use linear actuators or you can use rotary actuators. It is up to you. And you can, even if you use linear actuator, that is a linear movement of a given actuator, it will still result in the equivalent motion that you saw in the previous slide. And there might be a question that how this is possible. So to again explain and illustrate this point that using linear actuators, you can still achieve the motions that we have seen in the previous video. I've placed another video over here, so you can see. So you can see this is the direction control valve. Don't worry about the terminology that I may be using now because we'll be discussing them in detail. So this is the linear actuator. Okay, so you can see the piston is extending, and because of that extension, the arm has moved away. And then again, there is a linear extension of this particular actuator at the waist, which results in rotational motion. Now, again, so you can see that all the actions are possible using linear actuators. So you can see that there are four linear actuators, one over here, one at the to operate the jaw, another one over here, and one at the waist. So these are the four actuators that are used to achieve the same motion. I believe that this kind of setup is possible for you to get after this FDP. Surely you'll get enough confidence to go and build ahead at least this basic robot. So we have seen that various motions are possible using both linear and rotary actuators. And the major difference that I would like you to focus on is that in case of electric motors, the electric motors were mounted on the joint itself. But in this case, you can see that on the right hand side of the video, there is a pump unit. Right? And it is placed it is placed remotely. It is not located at the joints. What we have at the joints is only actuators. The supply that you provide or the supply element is remotely located. So this is one of the major advantage of using pneumatic supply or fluid power. Now let's go through the official or the definition of actuator. What do you mean by actuator? An actuator is a component of a machine that is responsible for moving and controlling a mechanism or a system. Now, in this case, what was the component which was responsible for the motion? It was the actuator. This one, the single acting, sorry, the cylinders. If the piston were to extend or retract, that would result in motion of the machine. So this is the definition of an actuator. An actuator is a component of a machine or a robot that is responsible for moving and controlling a mechanism or system. Many people they randomly use electric motors or fluid without understanding what is the difference and when it should be used. So in this slide, we'll try to highlight when to use what, when to use electric motors and when to use fluid pumps. When would we use electric motors? What is the main benefit of using electric motors? So the applications where the predominant form of motion is rotational, and another one is that they are easy to control and can be least expensive power source in small systems that have few axes or light loads. So please remember these 3 points, that when would you go for electric motors? When the motion is rotational in nature, when there are few axes and uh, the loads are light. That means you are not going to carry heavy load. An electric motor is typically located close to or directly on the motion axis. Like I said in the previous slide, we saw that electric motors were directly mounted on the joints. In fluid power systems, the air or hydraulic pump may be located remotely. They need not be near or exactly located at the joint. They can be placed remotely, also apart. Fluid power, when to use fluid power? When we need to lift and hold heavy loads and can move heavy objects at low speeds. So when you want to operate or we want to move heavy loads, in those instances, we'll definitely go for fluid powers. And especially if those heavy loads have to be moved at a very slow speed. In that case, we are going to use fluid power. There is no option for electric motors. Or apply torque without the need of for gearing, when consuming less space and producing less heat at the actuator than electric motors. Unfortunately, electric motors they heat up in the process, whereas actuators, fluid power actuators, because they use fluids which flow from one location to another. There is a transmission of there is the heat gets carried away from the location. That is why the heating problem is not so much prominent in fluid power systems. The hydraulic advantage is greatest when there are brakes in motion. So when you have a jerky motion in those instances, uh, if I have to give an example, imagine if you were to visit a mall, and in those malls you would see transparent lifts. So those lifts are essentially in most of the cases they are uh, you know, controlled using hydraulic powers. नीचे से एक telescopic piston रहेगा, so it expands. Okay, so as you go to the first floor, and then another cylinder comes out from the previous piston, and the platform goes to the next level. So um, in those instances where we want to have a smoother transfer, okay, of load, in those instances we will always use hydraulic. Electric motors make sense in applications with continuous motion. Hydraulics have advantage when heavy or unpredictable loading can overload the actuator. Pneumatics can have advantage where softer motion is desired. Let's take an example if we want to uh, transfer a brittle material, for example, a glass. Transfer a glass from one location to another location, you would rather prefer to use a pneumatic actuator. In this particular example that I gave you, you would definitely use vacuum cups. Yeah, they are also called as suckers. So now that we have seen when we should use fluid power systems, we'll try to understand the basics of fluid power. When I say fluid, the uh, fluid can be in two states. It can be in liquid state, and it can also be in gaseous state. So when the fluid in the system that you're using is in liquid state, it is a hydraulic system. Hydra in Greek means water. So this word hydraulics has come from the Greek word hydra. Then if the fluid in the system is gaseous in nature, let's say if you are using air or any inert gas, in that case it will be called as a pneumatic system. And pneuma in Greek means air. That is how the word has originated. Fluid power applications can be classified into two major segments. First one is stationary hydraulics and pneumatics, and second one is mobile hydraulics and pneumatics. Now, what do you mean by stationary? As the word is self-explanatory, stationary means the system remains at the same geolocation. Okay, it does not move from one location, geolocation to another geolocation. For example, the very first example that I gave you of elevator. So the elevator will remain in a fixed location. It will not move out of the mall. Okay. But Mobile hydraulics or pneumatics is a fluid power application where the entire power unit along with the actuators will move from one geolocation to another geolocation. For example, if you have observed JCB, so the bucket movement of the bucket is made possible using hydraulics, and that entire system would be classified under mobile hydraulics or pneumatics. In case of many robots, we would prefer to use characteristics of mobile hydraulics and pneumatics. Then it is very again an important topic is to understand the difference between fluid transportation system and fluid power system. Now, what do you mean by fluid transportation system? In fluid transportation system, fluid is transferred from one location to another location. For example, the water that is supplied by municipality at our home. So it is pumped from a dam location into the tanks, and then from tanks to our home. So the purpose of this entire system is simply transfer water from one location to another location. Whereas in fluid power, it is anticipated that the fluid transfer will result in performing certain kind of work. So we cannot randomly use the word fluid power system. Whenever we say fluid power system, that means that we are going to perform certain kind of work. It is mandatory. Uh, the law that has made fluid power system work so efficiently is the Pascal's law. And what does the Pascal's law say? Pascal's law says that a pressure change at any point in a confined incompressible fluid is transmitted throughout the fluid such that the same change occur everywhere. So in simple term, if I go to the diagram at the right hand side of my slide, so if this system where was to be a closed confined system, that is the fluid is closed and in this container, I would anticipate that a molecule that faces that has or that faces a pressure, let's say P2 over here, that pressure P2 should be equivalent to the pressure that the molecule faces over here, okay, at the left hand side of the system. So any particle in the fluid, if the fluid is incompressible, and secondly, if it is inside a confined container, then every particle in the fluid will face or will have equivalent force, equivalent pressure. Okay. Now, the pressure by definition is force per unit area. So, uh, if you want to find pressure in this cross section, let's call this as P1, and it is equivalent to F1, that is the force that you have applied, divided by P1 area, that is this cross section area of this particular container over here. Now, this particular example is to show how we can use less force to elevate a platform which may have, let's say, a vehicle. आपने कार वॉश करने के लिए अगर गए होंगे तो आपने ऑब्जर्व किया होगा, if you have gone for car wash, you must have observed that using a small pump, the platform can lift tons of weight. How that is made possible? It is made possible because of the Pascal's law. Let's see how that works. So let's call this pressure over here as P1 and pressure over here as P2. So by definition, pressure is force per unit area. So P1 is going to be F1 by A1 over here, and P2 is going to be F2 by A2 over here. Okay, so A2 is the cross section over area here. So again, we make a second assumption saying that A2 is 10 times the cross section area is 10 times that of the piston side area. It's just an approximation, just to give you an idea. Okay, so by Pascal's law, P1 is going to be P2. That means F1 by E2, F1 by A1 is going to be F2 by A2. And if we equate all this, we will get that F2 is nothing but 10 times that of F1. That is, the force that is exerted by this piston onto this vehicle is 10 times the force that you may exert on the piston. So let's say if you exert a force of 10 newtons, the platform will exert 100 newtons of force onto the vehicle. This is how you will get force multiplication using Pascal's law, and this is possible in fluids. So what are the advantages of using fluid power? The advantages of using fluid powers are fluid power systems are simple, easy to operate. And the simplicity and easiness of operating we'll see as we go on to the simulation software. The second one is multiplication and variation of forces. As I have explained in the earlier slide, we can get multiplication and variation of forces. Then third one is low torque speed. Now, irrespective of what kind of speed the motor or the actuator is working under, it will exert a constant torque. It will exert a constant. So basically, if you are a little bit aware of electric motors, so the torque increases as the speed increase, and there is an there is an optimal speed under which you get a maximum torque. So at lower speeds for an electric motor, you cannot go beyond certain torques. The motor can only handle certain amount of torque. But in case of pneumatics, right, in case of hydraulics and pneumatics, that is to say in fluid power, right at the beginning, you can go with the maximum torque that the system allows. So it is independent of the speed, operational speed. That is the advantage of using fluid power. Then the fourth advantage is constant force or torque. Like I explained earlier, it exerts a constant force or torque. In case of linear actuators, it will exert constant force. In case of a motor, it will exert a constant torque. It is economical. I would say economical in the sense, when it is in operational state, then it becomes economical. If you just simply calculate, if you go for an financial terms and try to calculate the cost of electric system over fluid power system, of course, electric system is going to be much cheaper. But when it is in operational state over a period of years, the fluid power system becomes more economical. Then low weight to power ratio. It is desirable for any system to have weight to power ratio should be low. That is to say that in less weight there should be more power. Then the last advantage that is stated in this particular slide is that fluid power system can be used where safety is of vital importance. For example, in case of airplanes, so the landing gears of an airplane is hydraulic system. So in such kind of vital components, we use fluid power because they are reliable. Now let's discuss the various basic components of hydraulic system. Like I said, hydraulics means we are going to use a fluid which is in which state? It is in liquid state. So it is not necessary that we should always use water in hydraulic system. If you have not visited, or if you have not seen a hydraulic system, you would be surprised to know that in fact, 90% of the applications, instead of using water, we use petroleum oils, various synthetic oils and petroleum oils instead of water. Now, why we may not use water, even though water is economically cheaper, it is abundantly available. Why not to go for water as a fluid, as a fluid in hydraulic system? The reason being that the properties of the water, they are corrosive in nature. That is, if the water flows through via these various components, it results in corrosion of those particular components. So that is why we prefer to use oils. And using water has a limitation. Those limitations are exploited by oils by their properties. That is, when oil is used, oil acts as anti-corrosion, and secondly, it also acts as a lubricator. So because of these desirable properties of oils, in 90% of the cases we will come across, you see that hydraulics use oils, and that is why the term dirty hydraulics has come, because the oil, whenever it comes out or when it leaks from the system, it creates a lot of kachra everywhere. So that is why this dirty hydraulics or the hydraulic systems are dirty in nature. So let's go back to the basic components of hydraulic system. So we have a reservoir where we collect or keep all our fluid. So in this case, let's assume that we are using a particular kind of oil. This is an oil tank where we keep our oil. Then we pass that oil through filter. The very first component that the fluid has to go through is a filter. Why this filter is important? This filter is used because there might be some foreign particle, dust, there might be some particles which are not supposed to go into the system. So those can be filtered out using filter. Then the water is actually sucked by the pump. Okay, from this pump, there is a vacuum created in the chamber so that the oil is being sucked into the pump. And how the pump is made operational? By giving motor power. So we use motor to power the pump. Then it is made to pass via pressure regulator. What is the importance of a pressure regulator? The importance of a pressure regulator is that it will ensure that when the maximum pressure reaches in the system or when there is an overload in the system, uh, the pressure regulator will ensure that the pressure is kept constant such that the pump does not overload. अगर आपका component actuator overload हो रहा है, that will pass on the pressure via this fluid back to the pump. The pump, we cannot afford to have higher pressures on the pump because pump is in fact one of the expensive part in the system. And secondly, if the pump does not operate, we cannot essentially the system has to stop. So it is important that we do not pass on the overload to the pump. Secondly, also the weakest link in the system are these pipelines. And if there is an overload, what will happen? There are chances that the pipe may burst. To avoid that, we fit a pressure regulator such that if the pressure in the system exceeds a certain value, then this pressure regulator will come in action and will reduce the said pressure. And how does this pressure regulator reduces the pressure in the system? What it will do is it will simply bypass the fluid which is being pumped by the pump back into the reservoir. जो भी यहाँ पे fluid आ रहा है, if the pressure regulator will simply pass all the fluid back to the reservoir such that no additional fluid is passed on the system, and the pressure in the system, please remember, in hydraulics and pneumatics, in both instances, is generated only because of the fluid present in the system. अगर fluid नहीं होगा तो pressure will not be generated in the system. So if anyone asks you want to reduce pressure in the system, simply remove the quantity of fluid in the system. That will result in reducing the pressure in the system. Then secondly, it is made to flow via this directional control valve. There are three types of control valve, please remember. First one is direction control valve, second one is your flow control valve, and third one is your pressure control valve. So direction control valve, as the word direction says, it controls the direction in which the fluid should follow. So you can see there are levers on top of the direction control valve. There are three different positions. So if I change from one position to another position, it will ensure that the fluid flows from one pressure port to another pressure port. And if I switch the position, it will switch the pressure port from which it needs to flow. So assume that if I keep this lever at location 3, it will ensure that fluid will flow from this pressure port to this pressure port. And if I move this lever from position 3 to position 2, that will make the fluid to flow from this pressure port to bottom side of this bottom pressure. So this is the working, or this is what a directional control valve does. Then second one is flow control. Essentially, flow control valve regulates how much quantity of fluid is flowing into the system. So you can reduce the quantity of fluid by creating throttles. आपने अगर सिंपल जो घर पे टैप होता है ना, so if you rotate it clockwise and clockwise, you can control the flow of the fluid. So that is essentially the same principle is used in case of fluid power. So that constitutes your flow control. Then third one is your pressure control. Now the work of a pressure control valve is to regulate the pressure in the system. So this pressure regulator is in fact a pressure control. Okay. Then let's assume that the fluid now is flowing via this pressure port of the directional valve and comes out from this pressure port of the directional valve. and it flows into this compartment of the actuator. So this is where all the trick works in the fluid systems. This is important to understand how the actuator works. So what you see right now on the screen is a double acting cylinder. Now, what is a single acting cylinder or what is a motor and working of it, we'll see later on. But just remember that this is a double acting cylinder. And what is a double acting cylinder? Double acting cylinder means you can control both the motions, that is extension motion and retraction motion. What is an extension motion? Extension motion means the piston advances and tries to come out of the cylinder. That is your extension motion. And what is your retraction motion? Retraction motion is nothing but the piston comes back and tries to go further into the cylinder. That is your retraction motion. So instead of saying up and down motion, which will not be valid if I rotate this actuator. Let's say if I rotate it clockwise 90 degrees, then the actuator can no longer do, the piston can no longer do up and down motion, it can only do right and left motion. So in fluid power, it is not appropriate to say motion is top or bottom. Instead of that, the word that we use is extension and retraction. Okay, I hope that is clear. So when the fluid comes at this pressure port, it will start filling up this compartment. Okay, so this compartment is called as piston rod side compartment. यहाँ पे rod है piston का, that is why it is called as piston rod compartment. Okay. So it will start filling up the piston rod compartment side, and which will result or that will apply force on this piston to come downwards. That is, it will retract. So let's say if I pull the lever from position 3 to position 2, what will happen? The fluid will flow from this pressure port, and the fluid that arrives at this pressure port will be made available at the bottom pressure. So fluid flow will be like this from over here at the bottom side of the actuator. Now this part is called as piston head side. So you have piston head. So this is considered as piston head. So this compartment is called as piston head side compartment. So the fluid that comes at piston head compartment will force the piston to go up. And in this way, there will be an extension motion. Okay. And during this extension motion, the load which is kept on top of this piston rod will move. Okay. So this work is performed when you are moving a load. That means the work is performed. So in this case, we are performing work only in the extension stroke. In the traction stroke, because of the gravity, there is no as such work performed. The load inherently will try to come down. So this is how a hydraulic system works. So again, we'll be discussing this again in detail when we go to simulation software. Let's discuss about the basic components of pneumatic system. So pneumatic system, in majority of the cases, we use atmospheric air as a fluid. So in pneumatics, we use fluid in gaseous state and air which is abundantly available and economical to use. We in most of the instances we use air as a pneumatic fluid. Okay, so we take air from the atmosphere, it is made to pass via air filter, and why this air filter is again used? It is used to remove the foreign objects. Then it is used to go through this air compressor. Okay, so the work of this air compressor is to suck the air from the atmosphere, and then this air is then compressed and then made to pass via air cooler. By air cooler, in compression motion, there are chances that the air may get heated. So to avoid the excess heating, we use air coolers. It is not mandatory in all the cases. In some instances, we use air coolers. Then this air is stored in a reservoir. So this compressed air is stored in a reservoir. Please remember this: we are not simply storing the atmospheric air over here. It is atmospheric air, but it is in compressed state. Okay, and when this storage reservoir fills up, then there is a feedback. Pressure switch gets activated and switches off the power supply of the motor, which is moving this air compressor. So this is how we store the compressed air. Now, please remember that in case of hydraulics, we keep this pump running, but in case of pneumatic, that is not required. Okay, as long as your storage reservoir has the compressed air, yeah, that's it. So as long as you have compressed air stored inside the reservoir, you need not keep this running. Okay? Then the air is then passed via, as usual, through a direction control valve. It can be made to flow via flow control valve. It may be possible to flow it via a pressure control valve, and or it is made to pass via direction control valve. Again, the working principle of this particular direction control valve is similar to what I have explained for the hydraulic, and the working of air actuator is exactly similar. The only difference being that in case of hydraulic actuator, you can see that the oil or the fluid that is we are using, the liquid state that fluid that we are using in case of hydraulics is made to pass back into the reservoir. So this forms a closed loop system in hydraulics. Why we want to preserve the oil? Because the oil may be expensive, right? So we don't want to simply because it is overheated or it is probably having some foreign material, we don't want to throw it off. We can reuse it. So that is why we use a closed loop system. But in case of pneumatic system, since air is abundantly available, it is cheaper, and there is no harm of passing this air into the atmosphere. So uh, we can afford to use a open loop system. So this is an open loop system wherein both ends are not joined. So what we can essentially do is we can allow the air to flow back into the atmosphere. So there is an differentiation between the hydraulic system and pneumatic system. I think it has been already discussed in the previous sessions. I would welcome you to go through the slides. I'll be sharing the slides with all of you. You are most welcome to go through this differentiation. I'll just highlight two differentiation based on which you should choose to use hydraulic or pneumatic system. First one is when should we use an hydraulic system? When the pressure is more than 10 bars. Okay, 10 bars is 700 bars the pressure, we can use it using a hydraulic system. But when we want to operate a system between 5 to 10 bars, we can safely use a pneumatic system. Secondly, when there is now, if you remember, I said that we use most of the instances we use oil, and you may be knowing that most of the oils are flammable in nature. That is, they risk to catch fire, so they possess fire hazard. So in those instances where the temperature, when we need to use a system where the temperature exceeds certain flash point, we will go for a pneumatic system. So these are the basic two reasons, uh, comparisons based on which you choose a hydro system or a pneumatic system. So I have taken a lot of time. I'm sorry for that. I thought that I'll get a lot of time to deal with simulations, but no problem. We'll go to the simulations and see how this we can use grid power to achieve certain motions. So you can go through this link. This link would be available in the slides. So what is available in this link is the software that I'm going to discuss. So the software that we are going to discuss today is about fluid sim hydraulics and fluid sim pneumatics. It's a Fiesto product. On this link, you can find the demo version of that. You are invited to please download that and use it to your maximum benefit. And stop sharing this. And I'll share my entire screen now so that we can move on to the. Let's go to the fluid sim dash h. So this fluid sim dash h. So I would kindly request one or two of you to kindly write in the chat box whether if you are able to see the screen. This particular simulation software का screen आपको visible है तो please write down in the, let me know in the chat box. Thank you. So we are going to see the working of hydraulic system. I'm going to show you that in it's in dash H. Dash H stands for hydraulics. Similarly, we have dash P. So this dash P stands for pneumatics. So whenever we try to design fluid power system in hydraulics or in pneumatics, what we design first is an actuator. Let's say if you want to have a linear motion, that's an assumption that I'm making for our application right now. So let's say if I want to have a linear motion using a hydraulic system. So the very first question that I'll ask is, what kind of linear motion do I need to have? Do I need to perform? Uh, so there is a request that kindly mute yourself so that uh, there is no disturbance. Anyways, um, so what kind of linear actuator would I use? Should I use a single acting cylinder or a double acting cylinder? So let me first get those. So these are the various options that I have in the linear motion. I can either go for a single acting or a double acting. So what is the difference of using a single acting and a double acting cylinder? The difference is that if I want to perform work in both the motions, okay, in the extension as well as the retraction part, if I want to perform work in that instance, I would prefer to use a double acting cylinder. But if I want to achieve or I want to carry out work only in the extension stroke, in that instance, I'll only use a single acting cylinder. Okay, a best example that I can give you for the single acting cylinder is the one that is used under the dumper trolley. Okay, आपने अगर dumper trolley देखा होगा, so in that there is an actuator at the base of the trolley. Okay, when there is an extension of the actuator, so I'll just rotate it you so that you may visualize it. जब ये piston का extension होता है, whenever there is extension of this piston, the platform which is attached on top of this will get tilted. Okay? It is hinged on the other side, and the one side is hinged, the other side is kept on the and is attached to this piston rod end. So whenever there is an extension, there is a pivot, and the platform tilts so that the water material is there in the trolley will flow using gravity. Now, when I need to retract this piston, I can simply make use of gravity. Okay, the gravity ka force hoga, which will act on top of this piston, which will result in this piston to come down. Okay, so only in the extension stroke will I use the fluid power. In the retraction stroke, I need not use fluid power. In those instances, I'll use single acting cylinder. Okay, well, I'll again rotate it back to its initial state. So once I have choose to use either single acting cylinder or a double acting cylinder, what I need to choose now next is what kind of main control valve will I use. So please remember always, in case of hydraulics, we always use for operating single acting cylinder, we always use a 3x2 type of directional valve, and in case of hydraulics, to operate a double acting cylinder, we always use a 4x2 type of directional valve. Now what do I mean by 3x2 and a 4x2? So 4 stands, or let's talk about 3x2 first. So this component that you see over here is a symbol for 3x2 directional valve. And another thing that I would like to highlight to all of you is that these symbols, they remain they are standards. Okay, so irrespective of whatever software you may use, they'll remain the same. अगर आप सिंगल एक्टिंग सिलेंडर का सिंबल निकालने जाओगे तो ये ऐसा ही होगा. It will not change based on the software. It is international standard and it is always like this. Similarly, for directional intervals, okay, they are always they follow standard and they are always represented symbolically in this fashion. Okay, so what do you mean by 3x2? As I was saying, 3 stands for 3 different ports that are available in the directional interval. So you can see over here, यहाँ पे एक P port है, T port है और A port है. Okay, so this A port I'll connect it to actuator. Okay, this P port I'll connect it to the pump, and this T port I'll connect it to the tank. Okay, so this ports, the count of the port is 3. That is why it is 3 by 2. When I say by 2, 2 stands for two different positions that are available in the directional. So in this instance, I have two positions. You can see there is a right hand side. So this box is divided into two squares. Okay. So this rectangle is divided into two squares, and the right hand side square is its by default or initial state. Okay. And this constitutes its first position. And then second position is this left side. So left side box. So what is the difference in these two boxes? The difference is how these ports are connected. So you can see this P port, it is initially blocked. So this is called initially closed position. This is 3 by 2 directional valve with initially closed position. Okay, और जो भी liquid यहाँ पे रहेगा on the left hand side, it is made to flow via this tank, via this port A to port T, and then this port T is again connected to tank. That connection I'll show you later on. But first try to understand what do I mean by 3 by 2. 3 by 2 means 3 ports and 2 positions. Similarly, in this instance, you can see that there are 2 ports and there are 4 ports. This P, T, A, and B. Okay, so these are the 4 ports and 2 positions. That is why it is called as 4 by 2 type of directional port. So if I drag, let's say this one. Now I hope that all of you will be able to you can tell the nomenclature for this directional flow. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5 by how many positions? 2 positions. So this is 5 by 2 directional valve. Okay. So let's discuss about the positions. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll take, once I have selected this particular directional valve, I'll have my supply element dragged into my workspace. Okay. So this is my supply element. So like I showed in schematic diagram, there is a tank, okay, or oil reservoir यहाँ पे नीचे है, and then there is a line, okay, which comes and passes through this pump, and this pump is made to rotate using this motor. उसके आगे क्या है? उसके आगे आपके पास है, this is the symbol for pressure regulator. Okay. So this pressure regulator will ensure that when there is certain pressure exceeds in the system, this pressure regulator will switch on and will bypass the fluid will bypass via this pressure regulator back into the tank. So this port P, I'll connect it to port P over here. This port T, I'll connect it to port T in the directional port. Now, for now, you don't focus on this TS port. Okay, so this is secondary tank source, which for now I'll shut off the connection. So I have just connected port P and port T over here. Okay. So you can see now that if I run this simulation, what will happen? This pump will start pumping the fluid. It will arrive at port P and it cannot flow ahead because it is blocked right now initially. Okay. And when the position changes of this direction control valve, then this arrow, you can see it will ensure that port P is connected to port A. So the fluid will flow from port P to port A, and this fluid will ensure that this piston extends. Okay. So another important thing is, for a single acting cylinder, you need to have a retraction mechanism, because we're not using a fluid power. We need to have a retraction mechanism. So in this case, we have only two options. First one is either we can use gravity return, as I explained in previously, that in case of a dumper trolley, we use a gravity return. Okay, so we make the use of gravity for the piston to return back to its initial position. Okay. And now that is possible only if your actuator is placed vertically. What if your single acting cylinder is placed horizontally? So in that case, we can make use of a spring. So if I double click on the any component, so if I double click on this component, I can configure that particular component. Okay. So you can see the cylinder type is single acting, and it says extension. What does this extension mean? This extension means that when I actuate this particular actuator, what is its primary work? Its primary work would be done when this piston extends. Okay. The work will be performed when this piston extends. That is why single acting extension type. That is, initially it is retracted. Whenever fluid power is provided, the piston will extend. That is why single acting extension type, and we will have a spring return. You can see the preview of the component that may look. I say okay. So now the extension is possible. So now we also need to make provision for this direction meter wall to change its position. अपने आप तो change नहीं होगा ना direction meter wall. So we need to make some provision. So for example sake, right now what I'll do is I'll provide a push button. Okay. So I'll provide a manual push button on the left hand side and a spring on the right hand side. So please remember this is a symbol for a push button. Okay, and this wavy thing is a symbol for spring. Okay, so this wavy thing is spring. Similarly for this simulating as well. Okay. So let's try to simulate this. So just disregard this particular error that is thrown. Now you can see that as soon as I start the simulation from the top, the motor starts running, pump starts sucking the fluid, and the system over here you can see that 6 bars of pressure has already reached. Okay. This will show you, this is a pressure indicator. It will show you the pressure in the system. Okay. And as soon as the 6 bars is reached, this pressure regulator will come into action, and it will start bypassing the fluid back to the tank. Uh, let me run this simulation in single stage. I can run this simulation in this fashion, okay, in the real time, or I can go in stages, in stepwise. So what we'll do is first we'll go in stages. Let's see how there is a change in different states. So first what I'll do is I will press the push button. When I press the push button, what is happening? You can see the position has changed. Okay, that is now the fluid is made available to flow from port P to port A. Now it is no longer blocked because the position has changed. There is a route for fluid to flow from port P to port A. So the fluid will flow from over here. It is made available to fill this compartment. So when the fluid is made over here, what kind of resistance it has to overcome? It has to only overcome the resistance of this particular spring. Okay. So in the next step, you will see that यहाँ पे भी so there is a query, I guess. Excuse me for this. Okay. So another important thing that you need to remember is that how the pressure changes. Now you will see that there was 6 bars of pressure, है ना? तो अभी जैसे ये फ्लूइड को रेजिस्टेंस नहीं है, when it was switched off, at that time it had a lot of resistance, so there is no way for fluid to flow. Now there is a path for fluid to flow, that is now it is having least resistance. So you will observe now in the next stages that the pressure in the system will start decreasing over here. Okay. So let's go to the next stage. You can see now the fluid is made available. It is resulting, okay, in piston to go in the forward direction. That is, the piston is extending. The extension stroke is happening simultaneously. Since there is no resistance for the fluid flow, the resistance in the system has dropped down to 0. I hope you will be able to appreciate this point, how the system, how the pressure is built up in the system. Okay. So in the next step, you can see there is complete extension and there is a nominal increase in the pressure. Now, since there is no longer any path for the fluid to flow, the fluid will start generating pressure. Okay, now you will see in the next stages the pressure in the dial indicator will increase. Okay. See, it has reached the maximum limit of 6 bars because it is set at 6 bars. So as soon as it reaches 6 bars, this pressure regulator will change its state and the fluid will start bypassing. I cannot go to the next step because there is screen that is hindering my mouse motion. Let me just minimize this. Okay. So in the next instance, what I'll do is I'll release this push button. When I release the push button, what will happen? The spring, because of the spring, the direction control valve will return back to its initial state. And now whatever fluid is available in this particular compartment can flow via port A to port T. So this spring, which is on the piston rod side, will push the piston ahead, and that liquid will flow from port A to port T and will return back to the tank. You can see. Okay. So this is how your system work, actuator का working ऐसा है. So similarly for double acting cylinder. Now in reality, what you will do is you will connect it in this fashion. एक ही मोटर यूज करते हैं जनरली इन ऑल द सिस्टम्स वी ओनली सी दैट वी मेक यूज ऑफ ओनली वन पावर यूनिट and we don't use multiple power units. So I can actuate both these cylinders using same power unit. So let me give a manual push button to this particular directional control as well. So if I run the simulation, press this push button, there is extension. As soon as I release the push button, the spring will make sure that the position is changed and the piston retracts. So there is an extension only when I keep this push button pressed. As soon as I release the push button, there is retraction. Okay, so this is the very basic of hydraulics and pneumatics. Let me just quickly go through all the other important areas. So please remember that we never directly mount a push button on top of the direction main control. This is called as main control valve. Even though it is a direction control valve, it is called as main control valve because it is directly responsible for the actuation of your actuator. That is why it is called as main control valve. Now we never mount a push button or manually operate this particular main control valve using any manual operations. Why we don't do that is because just imagine what kind of pressure we are dealing with. We are dealing with 6 bars. Okay, 6 bars roughly translates to, if I have to give you a rough estimation, if you have a push button which is roughly about a centimeter square, so that is almost about your thumb. You will have to apply a pressure of 6 kg. Okay, 6 kg of pressure needs to be applied to move this position. Now I'm just talking about 6 bars. If I had an application where I was supposed to use 20 bars, probably a person has to stand on top of this particular push button, and that is not practical. Okay, so that is why we do not directly mount a push button or any manual actuation directly on the main control. What instead we do is we make use of the fluid power itself. Okay, so what I'll do is, let me take this direction control valve. I'll remove this manual push button. Instead of that, I'll use hydraulic actuator. Okay, so यहाँ से मैं यहाँ पे ले लूँगा. So now this directional valve is there. So it is responsible for actuating this particular main control valve. And I'll take this connection from over here. So now you can see it is quite दिखने के लिए अच्छा नहीं दिखता है कि इतना सब लाइन overlap हो रहा है. So there is a standard which allows you to have multiple power source. You are allowed to represent or to have multiple pump units or power units in your diagram, but in actual application जब आप floor पे ये diagram use करोगे, in that instance you will never have multiple parts. You simply use one and you use distributors to take the connection. So because there is too much overlapping, I'll delete this connection. Instead of that, I'll use this. Okay, and this unit is a simplification of this particular figure. ये जो है ये और ये equivalent है. This stands for pump unit. Okay, and this stands for tank. I hope this is clear to all of you why I'm using two different pump unit and tank source. So in actual practice, we'll never use two. We only use one, but simply to not confuse with lot of connections, the standard allows me to have different pump unit in the diagram, but in actual practice we only use one pump. So अब क्या होगा, मैं जब यहाँ पे प्रेशर यहाँ पे डालूंगा, so this pneumatic pressure will this hydraulic pressure will be used to change the position of this particular direction. Okay, so you can see the working remains exactly same. That is, extension will happen as long as I keep this this directional tool pressed. So with this, I'll close the hydraulic simulator. I'll move on to the pneumatic simulator over here. So I have already pulled down various actuators that are available. Okay, so you can have in pneumatics, you can have a rotary actuator, you can have a single acting cylinder, you can have a double acting cylinder. Then you can also have this sucker. Okay, this is also called as vacuum levers. So this is also made available. These are available in pneumatics. How to use them, I'll show you in a short while. But again, to operate linear actuators, we'll use the same method that we have used in case of understand the software. Yes, there are links to understand the softwares. We'll be sharing the link to download this particular software when we share the what do you say, the presentation with you all. So in the presentation, you have the link. You can go and download it, and along with that, there are no as such tutorials available. But if you drag any component and simply right click on it and go for component description, you can see that there is a description of the components from which you can decipher yourself how to use the component. Okay. So yes, let me move back to our presentation. So there are these four actuators available in case of pneumatics. You have rotary actuator, and you have linear single acting, then you have double acting, then you have so in case of pneumatics, if you want to operate the change from hydraulics and pneumatics is that in case of pneumatics, if you want to operate double acting cylinder, we always use a 5 by n type of connection. If you remember, in case of hydraulics, we have used a 4 by 2 type of direction. But in case of pneumatics, we go for 5 by n type of direction. Now, I'll not go into details of why we use 5 by 2, but to simply give a reason, it is simply economical to use 5 by 2. Now, how it is economical? For that, probably it will take half an hour to 1 hour just to explain how the manufacturing of this particular component is much more cheaper than compared to the 4 by 2. But for now, just remember that since it is more economical and cheaper to use a 5 by 2 directional tool in pneumatics, we go for 5 by 2 type of direction. Okay. Then again, we'll use power supply. Supply elements में है compressor है आपका, so there is a difference in the symbol. The difference is only that in hydraulics ये जो symbol था ये filled था, black में filled था, है ना? In this it is not filled. So that is the only difference. Now, since we said that a pneumatic system can be an open loop system, in which I need not pass the fluid that is coming out of the system back to the tank. So in that case, I can leave them into air. So in actual practice, we directly never release the air into the atmosphere. So the reason for that is simple, because if you make the air to pass through an aperture, it will make a lot of hissing sound, which is not very pleasant. So to avoid that, what we do is we use a terminator. In this case, we use silencer. So there are different options. Again, because of lack of the time, I'll not explain all of them. But please remember, this is a kind of silencer that is used as a terminator. Okay. So whenever the fluid has to flow out, it flow via this particular terminator, so that the hissing sound will not be a problem. So now let me again, in this case, use pneumatic on both the sides. And I'll go for a 3 by 2 type of direction. So I'll need to configure it immediately so that I can copy paste it. So I'm making use of Control C, Control V, essentially to copy paste it. I can copy and paste it over here. So now I'll provide one actuation on the left hand side, another actuation on the right hand side. So what will happen because of this? This kind of configuration is called as memory valve. Okay. This double pilot valve, it is called as memory valve. So let me show the simulation for this. Okay, please avoid all the errors that is shown. So what will happen because of this kind of arrangement? If I press the push button over here, okay, you can see that the fluid is made to pass. It is made to pass by this port. यहाँ से आएगा, यहाँ पे इसका पोजीशन चेंज करेगा डायरेक्शन टू वर्ड, and because of that the piston will extend. Okay, and since there is no retraction mechanism, यहाँ पे spring नहीं है इस साइड पे, So the even though the actuation has been removed, okay, यहाँ पे spring है, मैंने यहाँ से push button निकाल दिया, there is no fluid available now, okay, uh, when I release the push button. But the position will not change. The main control valve will not change position because there is no retraction. So it will remain in this extended state. And when I press this push button, only then it will retract. Why? Because when I press this push button, this particular fluid will pass and will shift the position. Okay. And this is how your retraction will take place. So if I press this push button, there is extension. When I press another push button, there is retraction. So this kind of circuit is called as standard on-off circuit. Why standard on-off circuit? So write it down. This type of circuit is called a standard on-off circuit. Why? Because if you have worked with simple farm motors, तो उसमें क्या होता है? You press a green button, it will result in extension, and when you press another red button, it will result in retraction. है ना? So that is the function of a stand on-off circuit. It will simply perform simple action of stand on-off circuit. You press one button, it will result in extension. Press another button, it will result in retraction. That is single and on-off circuit. So before I finish the presentation, I was actually planning to cover a lot of things, but unfortunately I could not. I'll just explain one concept called as implementing logics in case of hydraulics and pneumatics. Okay? So if you want to implement an AND logic, what is an AND logic? I go back to my presentation. What is an AND logic? The AND logic says that when you have, when both of the inputs are high, only then there should be an output. That is the AND logic. That is, if you have both them off, then output will be off. When either one of them is off, output will be off. The output will be high only when both the inputs are high, or output will be on only when both the inputs are actuated. Okay, so this kind of logic can be implemented using fluid power. If I make use of uh, flow control valves. This is a shuttle valve. So this will implement an OR logic, and what we are discussing is of AND logic. So I have explained you AND logic, correct? So let's implement this. So you have input of this particular directional valves. So this is essentially two push buttons, okay, and that is used to control this main control. So when I press one push button, there should not be any actuation. आप देख सकते हो, even if I am pressing this push button, there is no actuation. But when I press both the push buttons, okay, only then there is an output, and thus the piston extends. Whenever I remove any one of them, immediately there is retraction. Okay. Similarly, you can implement an OR logic. What is an OR logic? OR logic says that when either one of the input is high, you will get an output. So that is to say that I can write it in this fashion. ये दोनों input है, final time output. So avoid. So even if I press this push button, there will be extension. Even if I press this push button, there will be extension. Even if I press both the push buttons, there will be an extension. When I release both the push buttons, only then there is a retraction. So this is how you will implement an OR logic. So this is a very basic introduction to the fluid power systems. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of the session. It's almost 3:30. What I'll do is I cannot hear the sound. So I can do one thing. I can connect it via my phone if possible, so that I can take some questions. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, please do write them in the chat box. I'll try to answer them. The question is, in one side you multiplied A1 by 10. What is the logic behind that? No, I multiplied by 10. It's just an assumption. You can take anything. So you could take let's say the area would be it's essentially multiple of the area. it would have been, let's say, 5. It would have been 5 times the area. So I would have taken 5. Just a random number that was taken, 10. So does it depend on type of the fluid? Yes. Please remember, these fluids have to be incompressible in nature. If they are not incompressible, means when you apply forces or when you apply pressures on them, uh, they should not compress, they should not reduce in volume. So if they reduce in volume, then this Pascal's law does not hold. Second thing is, this fluid should not escape, or they should not have property of escaping from the container. Then again, it no longer remains confined to a system, and thus that you know is also not, that particular point is violated. So these are the two properties that the fluid has to use. And sir, why you use oil instead of water, not clear? Okay. I'm not sure if I will be able to hear with this, but let's see. Uh, the next question is, sir, why you use oil instead of water? Not clear in that particular time. Okay. So we use oil instead of water because water has a property which can corrode a component. Okay. So if you must have experienced, आपके किचन में अगर कुछ चीज अगर कुछ बर्तन आपने ऊपर रख दिया, which is of lot of stainless but simple iron, keep it in atmosphere and leave it for, let's say, 10 to 12 days. You're going to Diwali vacation and come back and see that it has completely rusted. Now rusting का कैसे होता है? It is triggered by that moisture present in the air. Okay? So the very important factor for rusting procedure, the process, is availability of water. So water will result in corrosion, and that we don't want. So oil can reduce that corrosion because it. Another important thing is because the oil also separates air. So oil film जब होता है component के ऊपर, so there is a partition between the component surface and the air. That also results in uh, uh, keeping the phenomenon of corrosion away. And second thing is, it acts as a lubricator. आप में जो pistons है या फिर moving parts जैसे direction control valves है, so it acts as a lubricator. Slide motion of piston. Does not oil slide the motion of piston? I'm not sure about this question. Does not oil slide the motion of the piston? I request Padma ma'am, maybe you can write a little bit in detail about the question. Second one is, can you share your email ID in contact detail? Yes, what I can do is, in the slides which I'll share, you'll definitely have my contact details in that. And regarding the number, telephone number, you'll have that available on the website. So you can take it from there. Unfortunately, I'm still not able to hear